Russian command is freaking out. The very first footage of Ukraine utilizing its F-16s has emerged, and it shows that Ukraine is getting serious about taking control over its own skies. The footage is short, it doesn't show much, but it says one clear thing: President Vladimir Putin won't be able to get away with his missile and drone barrages for much longer. Even more worrying for Putin is that this first footage of a Ukrainian F-16 in action isn't the only news to come out this week. The US is getting involved in Ukraine's hunt for more F-16s, and what it's doing may be the difference maker in the battle for the Ukrainian skies. On May 1st, Newsweek published a report highlighting that the first confirmed footage of a Ukraine-operated F-16 flying through the skies has made its way to social media. The footage doesn't show us much, lasting for around 10 seconds. A plume of smoke covers the screen before everything suddenly becomes clear. That's when it streaks into view. An F-16 comes hurtling through the skies and moves away into the distance. Newsweek confirms that the jet appears to be moving away from the camera toward an unspecified aerial target that, a moment later, gets enveloped in grey smoke. The target hasn't been officially identified yet, but according to Newsweek, an open-source military intelligence account claims that the intercepted object was one of the many drones Putin has relied on to strengthen his aerial assaults against Ukraine's cities and energy infrastructure, most likely a Shahed drone delivered by Iran to Russia. Newsweek has reached out to Ukraine's Air Force for a comment on the video, but hasn't received one yet. That's par for the course. The footage is shaky and appears to have been shot by a civilian on the ground using a cell phone. For Ukraine, any footage revealing exactly how it uses its F-16s could be dangerous, both in terms of giving away the location of one of its jets in flight and due to the potential of giving away military secrets to Russia. Still, the footage is out there. And it shows one thing: Russia should be terrified because Ukraine is figuring out new ways to use its F-16s every single day. Though Ukraine didn't comment on the specific footage revealed on social media, it did provide some context that clued into why this F-16 was in the skies. On April 24, the Ukrainian Air Force confirmed that it was using both its F-16s and recently donated French Mirage fighter jets to defend itself against combined Russian missile and drone strikes. Ukrainian reporter Andrei Saplyenko added a little more detail. Posting to Telegram, he said, "An F-16 shot down a Shahed drone over the Khmelnytskyi region this morning." The reporter also shared the social media footage that's been doing the rounds, suggesting that the F-16 captured on camera was involved in the city's defense. So there was an attack in Khmelnytskyi. What's known about this strike? Ukrinform published a pair of reports on the Russian drone and missile strike on April 24, lining up perfectly with the Ukrainian Air Force's confirmation of how it's using F-16s and Mirage jets, along with matching up to Saplyenko's social media post. The outlet's first report suggests that the Russian strike was at least partially successful. It says that a Russian attack managed to cause significant damage to one of Khmelnytskyi's residential areas, destroying 9 houses along with striking a high-rise building. The head of the city's regional military administration, Serhiy Turin, provided more details. Currently, 9 private households, windows and doors in 5 apartments of an apartment building, 1 garage, 4 cars, and 1 motorcycle have been damaged, Turin claimed on social media. It's also believed that the attack targeted a gas distribution point in the city, per another Ukrinform report, and caused injuries to 2 people. Turin also commented on these aspects of the attack, stating, "Last night, during an air raid alert, a Russian attack injured 2 people. 1 man sustained a minor leg injury and was taken to hospital. A minor also suffered a glass cut to the leg. Her condition is satisfactory and hospitalization was not required." 2 things can be drawn from these statements. The first is that Russia is continuing its campaign of bombarding Ukrainian cities with missiles and drones. Putin will claim that he was focused on a legitimate military target, the gas distribution point. However, he can't hide from the fact that the majority of his missiles and drones touched down in a city's residential area. If anything, the attack on the gas distribution point was a smokescreen Putin could point to as a means to distract from the real reason for the attack. He wanted to hurt more Ukrainian civilians. The second thing is that the Russian attack wasn't particularly successful. Ukrinform says that the gas distribution point was slightly damaged, though not to the point where the gas supply was interrupted. Most of the other damage occurred to residential buildings, with Ukraine already putting steps in motion to secure the supplies needed for repairs. That lack of success takes us back to the F-16 footage. The reason why Russians' Khmelnytskyi failed is that Ukraine had F-16s in the skies on April 24. The jet in the recently released footage was likely responsible for taking out at least one of the 3 Shahed drones Ukraine shot down that night, along with 4 missiles, which returns the focus to Russia's Shahed drones. By now, it's clear that Ukraine is using its F-16s, at least in part, as a counter to these powerful Iranian drones. And it needs to. After all, Russia has plenty of those drones at its disposal, and it's using them almost daily to launch aerial assaults against Ukraine. These aren't exact numbers when it comes to Russia's Shahed stockpiles. However, a September 2024 report by Reuters reveals that Russia has been using them extensively. It says that Ukraine's foreign ministry believes that Russia has launched at least 8,060 Shaheds since the start of Putin's invasion in February 2022. Given that the report is over half a year old at this point, it's safe to assume that the number has since increased to around 10,000. The partnership between Russia and Iran has resulted in lost homes and lost lives, the ministry said in a statement published to X. Reuters' report also points out that Russia isn't solely relying on Iran to produce these drones anymore. As of May 2024, Putin has set up several facilities that allow his defense industry to produce drones for him, with the largest being in the Tatarstan Republic. Reuters also says that Iran has been accused of providing Russia with ballistic missiles, though Iran refutes this allegation. So it's clear that Russia is using Iranian drones. The F-16 in the social media footage appears to have taken down at least one of those Shaheds. That leads to a question: why is Ukraine using such a capable aerial platform to take out Shahed drones? The answer is twofold. The drones are cheap to produce and can carry a strong enough payload to cause some serious damage when deployed alongside Russian missiles. In April 2025, Forbes reported that a single Shahed drone cost Russia around $30,000 when purchased directly from Iran. Now that Russia is building its own, those costs are driven down considerably. That low cost is a problem for Ukraine. Russia hiked its defense spending by around 25% for 2025, meaning it will throw $145 billion at its military to sustain Putin's invasion. Of course, not all of that spending will be dedicated to drone production and purchases. Russia needs to spend hefty fees to continue its high levels of recruitment and will likely dedicate most of the money to building new tanks and armored vehicles. Still, a $30,000 price tag for Shahed drones mean that Russia can buy or build thousands of them using just a fraction of its 2025 budget. For instance, say that Russia dedicates just 1% of its $145 billion expenditure to Shaheds. That amounts to $1.45 billion, which, when divided by $30,000, would mean that Russia could build a horde of over 48,300 drones in 2025. These figures are hypothetical, but they illustrate just how easy it is for Russia to build a fleet of drones that can wreak havoc on Ukraine's cities and infrastructure. Ukraine is using its F-16s to counter the threat these Shahed drones represent. And threat is the right word. Beyond the low cost, Shahed drones are powerful and dangerous. Army recognition describes the Shahed 136, which is the most common variant of Iran's unmanned aerial vehicle, as a loitering munition that can conduct reconnaissance or be converted into a kamikaze drone. In that latter configuration, a Shahed essentially becomes a guided bomb. Russia can strap a small explosive to the drone and fly it straight into a target. Iran has also tweaked these drones so they can move beyond the kamikaze use case. For instance, Army recognition says that one of the more recent Iranian developments is a version of the Shahed 136 that can fly in a horde configuration alongside several other drones. That sort of drone swarming is also dangerous for Ukraine. If Russia unleashes multiple Shaheds at once, those drones can serve as decoys to confuse Ukraine's aerial defenses, clearing the way for more dangerous missiles and kamikaze drones to reach their targets. The drone's configuration is also interesting. A typical Shahed 136 has a delta wing design that features stabilizing rudders at its tips. They're relatively small and lightweight, measuring about 11.4 feet long, 8.2 feet wide, and with a weight of about 440 pounds. When it comes to payload, it's all in the nose for a Shahed drone. The front section of the drone contains a storage area in which Russia can load explosives weighing up to 110 pounds. That means a Shahed can pack a punch. Granted, it's nowhere near as strong as a punch as a missile, but still, the drones are powerful enough to damage buildings, blow out windows, and kill civilians. That's exactly what Russia attempted in Khmelnytskyi, an attack Ukraine ultimately thwarted with its F-16. There are some downsides to the Shahed design. It relies on consumer-grade GPS for navigation, combined with an inertial navigation system. That combination means the drones are accurate, but can also be diverted using jamming techniques. They're also capable of reaching speeds of around 114 miles per hour over a range of up to 1,553 miles. Those may seem like impressive specifications, though they also reveal why Ukraine's F-16s have so much success against the Shahed. An F-16 is capable of Mach 2, which translates to twice the speed of sound and amounts to a top speed of around 1,345 miles per hour. By comparison, a Shahed is a slow-moving target that a Ukrainian F-16 can catch and take out with its missiles long before the drone reaches its target. And that appears to be precisely what's in the recently released F-16 footage. Of course, the trade-off is that an F-16 costs $8.2 million. Each deployment to tackle Shahed drones still comes with some risk, and Russia will always be happy when one of its $30,000 drones manages to overcome Ukraine's powerful and high-tech aerial countermeasures. Perhaps that disparity is why Russia is doubling down on its Shahed and overall drone usage. According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies, or IISS, there's been a month-on-month increase in Russia's drone assaults since June 2024. That's reflected in IISS figures, stating that Russia launched 2,300 of its drones in November 2024. By January of this year, the number had risen to 2,696 in a single month. Ukraine also believes that Russia produced 6,000 Shahed drones internally in 2024 and has plans to dramatically increase those numbers in 2025. So the Shahed is a problem, but it's one that Ukraine's F-16s have proven several times that they can handle. And there's another wrinkle in Ukraine's F-16 approach against Russia's Shaheds to consider. The drones are getting better. At least, that's according to a February 2025 report by the Kyiv Independent, which says that Russia is finding ways to modify its Shahed drones to make them even more dangerous. The outlet claims that these modifications include the provision of additional ballast, which appears to be in place to support a significantly enhanced payload. Now, says the resource, Russia's Shaheds are capable of carrying up to 198 pounds of explosives. Granted, that modification has led to this new generation of Shaheds having a reduced range of around 404 miles. That's still more than enough for Russia to launch them from just behind the front lines so they can strike targets within Ukraine. So, Russia's drones are getting more powerful. Ukraine's F-16s are growing more important than they've ever been as a result. If the recent F-16 footage shows anything, it's that a single Russian Shahed has no chance when stacked up against one Ukrainian F-16. That's bad enough news for Putin. Ukraine has shown itself capable of taking out some of Russia's most dangerous weapons in the skies. Still, Putin might hope that he still has the aerial advantage. Ukraine only has a limited supply of F-16s, and any that it does have require maintenance that might keep them out of the skies for extended periods. That's where the US comes into play. At the beginning of the video, the US was mentioned to be getting more involved than ever before in Ukraine's hunt for F-16s. Unlike the European countries that have provided Ukraine with F-16 so far, the US won't be offering flight-capable aerial platforms to Ukraine anytime soon. That makes sense. Although the F-16 is one of the older jets in the US arsenal, it's still used quite heavily by the US Navy. Every donated F-16 is a jet that the US no longer has for its own defensive needs. So what is the US doing? It's pulling broken down F-16s out of its boneyard to send to Ukraine. On the surface, that may seem like a strange move. Ukraine wants working F-16s, so the US sending airframes that are in states of disrepair might seem like a slap in the face. It isn't. If Ukraine is to have working F-16s, it also needs to maintain the F-16s that are in its current stockpiles. That's where the US donation becomes so important. It's sending F-16s from its boneyards to Ukraine because those older aerial platforms can be stripped for parts Ukraine can use to keep its working F-16s in the skies. That's the last thing that Putin wanted. He was relying on Ukraine only getting limited use out of its F-16s due to the jets' ages. Now he has to deal with the prospect of Ukraine being capable of carrying out repairs that ensure its F-16s remain a constant threat against Russia's drone and missile attacks. The War Zone, or TWZ, offered more details about what the US is doing in a May 1st report. It says that recent footage shows what appears to be partially disassembled F-16s being loaded onto a Ukrainian AN-124 transport at an aircraft base in Arizona. The outlet says that subsequent flight tracking showed that the transport left Arizona en route to Poland, from where it's likely that the old F-16s will be shuttled into Ukraine. A spokesperson from the US Air Force confirmed that new US move. They claim that the US has supported the sustainment of European-donated F-16s to Ukraine by providing disused and completely non-operational F-16s to Ukraine for parts. These F-16s were retired from active US use and are not flyable. Importantly, they lack critical components such as an engine or radar and cannot be reconstituted for operational use. Those missing parts hint at how Ukraine will be able to use these US-donated F-16s. It may not be able to fix the more technical aspects of its fighter jets with the US planes. However, it does get access to fuselages and other parts it can use to ensure its own F-16s stay in the skies. TWZ says that the US sent at least 3 of its broken down F-16s to Ukraine. Images shared on social media show the trio of jets, all of which were shrink-wrapped and appeared to be missing their engines, tails, wings and radomes. Those shrink-wrapped jets arrived in Yashonka Airport in Poland, which is an often used transit hub for Western weapons as they make their way into Ukraine. This is all terrible news for Putin. When footage first emerged of the shrink-wrap F-16s making their way out of Arizona to Poland, he may have consoled himself with the thought that America was providing these jets to the Polish Air Force. Now he knows that isn't the case. Official confirmation has come from the US that the jets are indeed heading to Ukraine. That alone is damaging to Putin. For months, he's attempted to manipulate the tide of US leadership opinion toward Ukraine. Those efforts have failed. With the US publicly announcing the delivery of spare F-16s to Ukraine, Putin has just received a definitive message. The US stands with Ukraine. What this means for Russia's leader is that Ukraine's aerial might is only going to grow. As of press time, 85 operational F-16s have been promised to Ukraine by its European partners. Those include 24 from the Netherlands and 19 from Denmark. Norway says it'll provide 12, along with another 10 aircraft frames Ukraine can use for spare parts. Belgium stands to be the largest donor. It says it's going to supply 30 F-16s to Ukraine, though that donation seems to be contingent on Belgium receiving a set of F-35s it's purchased from the United States. To heap more bad news onto Putin, the US also has plenty more broken down F-16s in its boneyard. TWZ says that there are currently 150 F-16As, 143 F-16Cs, 2 F-16Bs and 22 F-16Ds sitting around in storage waiting for somebody to find a use for them. Ukraine is that somebody, and now that the first delivery of these older platforms has been confirmed, it's likely that more will be seen in the future. So, the brutal F-16 surprise delivered to Putin is twofold. Footage has emerged of Ukraine using F-16s to destroy the Shahed drones he's relying upon to attack his enemy cities and infrastructure. And now, with the US confirming the delivery of older F-16s to Ukraine, Putin has to deal with the fact that Ukraine will be able to keep these powerful aerial platforms in the skies for longer than Russia ever anticipated. But what do you think about all of this F-16 news coming out of Ukraine? Will Ukraine be able to grow more confident in using F-16s as attacking forces now that it's getting more spare parts from the US? Can Russia do anything to counter the growing F-16 presence in Ukraine? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and remember to subscribe to the Military Show for more videos covering the latest developments in the Ukraine war.